I think Power Wheel races are highly underrated. I mean,
They are, but the liability powers that be, according to Eric.
Sure. Has he not seen Barbie Jeep downhill racing?
Eric was in favor. Eric asked the question to the liability powers that be. They said no. And Eric texted me and said, hey, they said no. So I asked him a question and then my phone rang and he goes, we're not going to have a recordable conversation. So here's what they said. And I asked him another question and he kept saying, I'm sorry, you're breaking up. I don't understand what you're asking me.
Do I need to push stop on the recording now and restart, or are you clear?
It's totally fine. So no, it's a parade is well within the stunting and sploding. So we're going to cruise.
I love that.
Someone needs a fez.
Absolutely.
A rainbow zebra stripe fez. Yes.
My document won't open with the introduction.
You've never really done this, Jeff.
Welcome to Everyone Racers,
a show designed for the world of low dollar racing and oddball car culture. I'm flying.
It doesn't matter what kind of limit champ
or lucky track dog you run. We won't SCCA or NASA. We won't discriminate as long as you drive it hard and built it yourself. The notes just open. Join us each week for a tech discussion, trips, tips, tricks, as well as news and notes in the world of amateur endurance racing. And whether it's on the spot, hella sweet, or we're lucky enough, and Chrissy gives us just a tip, we're sure you'll giggle a little and learn even less. Everyone report to the paddock.
197.
I was about to say that. 197 shows. Still doesn't know the intro. This is Chris.
This is Chrissy.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Mental. And we are Everyone Racers. Thank you so much for coming back and listening to a Clio Renault Sport 3 RS episode of the podcast. The Clio RS, which stands for Renault Sport, is a long-produced hot hatch from Nissan's corporate overlords based on the humble Renault Clio. Now, the third-generation Clio RS made 197 metric horsepower, or as it's annotated, PS, which allowed it to get from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 6.9 seconds. Nice. So if you're not driving a car, check out that revised E1R bingo card, and we'll kick this off with what you working on. Let's go with Chrissy.
Not car work, which is always fun. We spent the weekend at the Jersey Shore. We escaped the heat, which was awesome. We worked there for an extra day too, so that was nice. And now we're planning for our next weekend at a different beach. So it's just check it out on your bingo card if you have complaints about the weather, because we can complain about the weather on the East Coast. It was 100
it's like
today.
Vegas hot.
It's worse than Vegas hot because it's
humidity.
Humid.
Yeah.
And actually, we were talking before you got here. It's a higher temperature and humid.
Yeah.
Rain just passed through here, which means it's on its way to Jeff, which means it will be a little tiny bit cooler. Maybe. No, it still says it's 92.
Yeah. It was 100 degrees when I got in the car, according to the car thermometer, and 2006 GM would not lie to me. So
it's true.
Not about temperature.
Jeff.
I didn't do anything. It was hot. B, it was my son's 13th birthday party. So I did some house cleaning.
13.
13,
Holy
yes.
crap.
He's a teenager now. He actually got a little upset. He was like, what's going to happen tomorrow when I become a teenager? And we were like, nothing. But you said I'd have to mow the lawn and stuff when I became a teenager. Well, not tomorrow, though. Like,
but next week when it needs to be mowed,
you will get there eventually. But
and hey, I know he's not listening, but don't worry, Josh. Real low bar set with that lawn mowing.
Hell yeah! Who's most?
Don't hit the pool cover, and you're okay. That's it.
Don't destroy
pool cover.
Yeah.
Don't smash the window of the vet.
Exactly.
Yep.
I did put away all of or I should say, organize the camping gear and organize the front of the garage, because this weekend is July 4th weekend. Happy July 4th if you're listening, and it's about that time. Independence, America, Eagles, F yeah, all that stuff. Work will begin on the Z this weekend. Yay. As Jim has promised to give me a day or two to come over and start yanking that motor.
Cool. Hey, I just thought of something the other day. When that motor's off, I'd actually like to pull the oil pan again and check the oil pickup O-ring, because that is a common cause of oil pressure being low in those motors, and ours was a little low.
Oh, okay.
We'll talk about that more later at some
Yeah.
point, but just keep it on your mind. Let's check stuff while it's out, because I sure as hell don't think any of us want to take this out again.
Nope,
So,
not at
yep.
all.
Cool. I'll just keep going.
Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry, I didn't pass it over.
No, it's
Chris,
okay.
what you working?
You did pass it over, but I was just going to take it because I was already talking and I saw that you were done. More cleaning effluent out of the Corvette. That's so much fun. I tried an ozone machine. Bought one of those on Prime Day. It was on sale, so it was under $50. Put it in the car, plugged it in. Damn if it didn't work. Really, like, it is much nicer in there. So I think once I put the interior back in and get it running enough to have the vents all working, that I'll just let it sit and idle for an hour with the ozone machine on, so it really works its way into all the vents and stuff, because it's really much better. Yeah, well, a combination of all the cleaning and the ozone machine.
I'm Googling ozone machine so I can see what it looks like.
I say, would you?
It's a little box.
Well, they posted a picture.
Just a little box.
Yeah,
it's like,
give us a link. Maybe
it's like the size of a very small toolbox, maybe, and it just has a fan. It's the air goes in one side, goes through some kind of ceramic plate that turns it into ozone, blows it out the other side. Has a timer on it. It's really simple.
I believe it is some sort of charge that basically grabs any sort of a solid particle that is too small for us to
that black one on the left side of your screen, Jeff, right side of everyone else's screen, that's actually the one. So
all right, nice.
Kind of looks like a fog machine, except no like tube where it just spits out the fog.
So I had read that these are quite good at eliminating odors, especially in confined spaces. So I said, I've got the odor and I got the confined space. Let's give this a shot.
How bad can it be?
Right, exactly. I found a musty smell in the NSX's trunk, and I said, that's strange. This car hasn't seen water in months. So I took it all apart and found that some water had somehow made it underneath the styrofoam tool organizer thing way under the trunk. So I took that out and drying that off.
Mark that for one win for Honda and a loss for GM, because I took the bucket of damp rid that lives in the Corvette wheel well and dumped it out this week. So
good. Yeah. Well, your car lives outside, so it sees water. This one never sees water. So I don't know where this stuff comes from. Lastly, picked up the new Civic and went and put it in the garage next to the Civic. Yeah.
I'm excited by this.
Me too. Yeah. Just looking at a clean, straight, rust-free chassis.
Yeah. What is the sit rep? Like, is it everything you had hoped and more? Did you find any bumps and blemishes when you got it home?
No, it's the same as I looked it over better before, like on the reconnaissance trip, than I did this time. Because I looked it over really well then. So this time we just load it in, go. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I didn't know how well you had seen it.
And unloading was awesome.
Yeah,
really?
No, I saw it very well, and it's fantastic.
Because it was it awesome because it weighed nothing, or
yeah, well, it weighs nothing, and also then we backed the trailer right up to the garage and dropped the door.
But we rolled it right out, and it didn't hit the Citroen
or the other Civic.
Right. Yeah. No, it just lined up. It was easy. Yeah, it was good. Pushing cars is always an adventure.
Check out the Facebook post that Chrissy put on our Facebook page of the two Civics sitting next to each other. She asked a question. What do you think the two Civics are talking about? Oh, you're going to have a great life. I think it's a little darker than that. I think Godzilla's smoking a cigarette, got a broken eye and an eye patch and some scars. He's going, I've seen some shit, man. I've been working on lots of stuff and I haven't finished any of it. That's, more projects. And I told my friend on Instagram, Little Lemonade 03, he was one of the kart league guys. He actually won the endurance kart racing league, the SOTY World Series, and he politely asked for a shout out. So check him out on Instagram, especially if you like go-karts, racing memes, and video games. That's his jam.
So what are all of these things you're working on? I mean, you can just give us the
so
highlights.
I actually I got some work done on the Toyota. I found a set of rims, very cheap, that make it look a whole lot better. Cool. And getting most of it set up to pull out one of the Porsche 914 motors got shipped out here, so it's waiting on me to get a truck. I got basically, yeah, everything, the pieces, the last bit of the EPDM is cut and ready for the lumber to go on the roof, which I got a 4-day weekend.
Excellent.
Doing that. Vicky and I went and we've got a new Tuesday night tradition. So we were doing that, went to met up with some gearhead buddies. I got some work stuff coming up that nobody cares about. And I grabbed I've grabbed a power wheel that I'm going to modify with the Milwaukee 18-volt batteries for a goofy thing that we'll be doing, not related to any sort of a professional or amateur racing series officially. And it's the, I actually talked to Hamza about it and got some good, smart advice about how to firm it up for a 190-pound adult as opposed to a small child. Did the brakes, a good
call on that one.
Yeah, Hamza's a very good call. Did the brakes on the Mercedes, finally got a headlight bulb, and I am finding out that you can remove the headlight bulb, the low beam headlight bulb from the CLS without taking off the front clip. You can't put it back. So I've just been driving around during the day, and we take Vicky's car at night, and this weekend I'll be taking off the whole front clip and putting the light bulb, putting the headlight back in.
That's German engineering. That's a feature.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a side of feature.
I've lost feeling right here from so many times of trying to right where the one bracket that holds the lines for the air shocks is in place. So, but
I watched
child labor.
Yeah.
Little hands.
Got some work done on my Terry-X as far as getting the paint stripped, and I got some work done on my swamp cooler.
You've gotten a whole bunch of stuff done. That was interesting.
Yeah.
But none of it's finished. It's all just
doesn't
progress.
matter.
Yeah.
Progress. It's great.
Can I say something real quick here? I think the other day you said, Jeff, you're not European car people.
Yeah.
If you need more than one tool and like 10 minutes in a parking lot to change a light bulb, you're right. I'm not European car people.
Yeah,
we said it.
Facts. Yeah. And honestly, I mean, it doesn't. It's easier to change the brakes on the Mercedes than it is a headlight bulb.
No, that's silly.
Because this is the first time in 70,000 miles that it's needed a headlight bulb too.
Facts. Yeah, that is true. And incidentally, $98 for a bulb.
Yeah, no,
that's a sign of feature.
Can't wait for that Veloster to get a fall in my hands. Notes time.
All right, so if you caught the F1 races past
I
weekend,
did.
You saw. I was worth getting up early. It was good race.
Yeah, it was good. You saw Max Verstappen win after leading every lap because Lewis Hamilton had pitted for fresh tires to go for fastest lap. Then he had over a 30-second lead on the field. A very Verstappen fashion, he slowed, drove up to his Red Bull team in the pit wall, and lit them up, as kids say. The small burnout well off the racing line was verboten, according to Haley Southwell at the drive. Race director Michael Massey immediately contacted Red Bull and let them know that Verstappen would not be allowed to do anything like that, anything fun in the future. They were just getting American fans.
I saw that and said, that's kind of cool. That's like actual personality from the German. Like I would expect
Austrian, but
whatever. Same
it's
damn
like
thing.
it's like a German without a sense of humor.
Yeah, exactly.
Except that he's Dutch from the Netherlands.
He is Dutch.
Okay,
I guess.
Wears
Either
wooden
way,
shoes.
Yes.
Finger in the dike.
The Dutch have a
story,
sense of
right?
humor, but yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, it was personality from the typically robotic Verstappen. So I kind of liked it. And screw you, Massey, for being no fun.
Honestly, I
think his job is to actually be no fun. So, not really.
Whatever happened to the guy who ran Formula One who had like the S&M Nazi sex?
He actually died.
Yeah, but that's when F1 was fun. They found that sex tape and he said, yeah, what about it? That's what I like. Anyway, what was his name? Max Mosley, right? So anyway, two of the most interesting new model cars are about to show up in the flesh in real life. The 400Z actual sale model will debut on August 17th. Details and journalist testing models will be available right at this on the 17th. So expect to see that in every single
call
cover
us
of every single
Nissan.
car
We
magazine.
are your demographic.
Absolutely, without a doubt. Also, the new real Bronco, not the Bronco Sport, will start to be delivered in the detail to the dealers and to customers who have pre-orders any day now. So we'll start to see them in the street. Both were severely slowed to the market for industry closures and chip shortages and all those other things. I don't know about y'all, but I can't sneeze without hitting a Bronco Sport out here, and they're like not even close to cool. So I can't wait for
I disagree. I
Yeah.
do think they're, for what they are, I do think they're cool. It is a small utility vehicle as opposed to, some giant Super Duty truck from somebody that is never going to haul a trailer. It is off-road capable. It may not be Land Rover, but it's off-road capable. It's got a convertible top. For what they're making it to do, I think the Bronco Sport's a cool car.
Sport doesn't have a convertible top. It's an Escape with a chunky body.
Exactly.
We're talking about the 4-door, right?
Which is the little one. It's an Escape with a
one,
chunky body.
not the big
Yeah,
one.
it's I saw there's a convertible and strip the other day.
The regular Bronco, the big Bronco, has 2-door and 4-door and convertible tops and all that stuff. But the
Yeah, that
Bronco
might have been the
Sport-
real
then
Bronco.
I saw a real Bronco, in which case, hey, cool car. Yeah.
Which is again much more interesting. Removable doors. Anyway,
kitted up Escape, which is a terrible car.
Yeah.
I just wish they would call it the Bronco 2.
I agree.
Because if you're gonna have a crappy Bronco, call it the Bronco 2,
Call it the Bronco 3.
or just don't call it a Bronco because it's not. Anyway,
That name sells.
I know it's all not as bad as the Mustang Mach-E. Let's not get started on how awful it was that they used that name.
Even though
What do you, Chris? What do you think about Harbor Freight?
I think
anything to
I was about to say that until you said it. Harbor Freight is wonderful, and we love Harbor Freight for so many reasons. We also love the Predator engines in Harbor Freight.
Heck yeah! To catch a Predator engines.
Totally, the one in the snowblower. It's amazing, durable, cheap enough to do dumb things, and that some people are wondering how durable. Well, Ari and Zach from Revzilla used a Predator 212 to build a replica of the mini bike from Dumb and Dumber that those characters rode from Nebraska to Aspen. How dumb is that? Well, Ari and Zach actually rode that mini bike that they built from Nebraska to Aspen.
Oh, I'm so excited by this story.
3 days of riding, 382 miles, 2.5 rear tires. That's my favorite part.
Those were $18 each,
right?
At Tractor Supply.
They only used 7.5 gallons of gas to get there.
I got to do the math on that. Hold
Yep,
on, it's
please.
7.5.
They averaged. They got their worst. They got 25 miles per gallon. Their best was 64 miles per gallon. A little off the Jim Carrey. Look at 70 miles per gallon on this hog. But yeah,
in Nebraska you would. Yeah. Anyway, video and article in our notes. That's fantastic.
Well,
We're
I am
there.
watching this.
We're there.
We're there, man.
Just go, man.
and actually, one of the guys in character did it with no gloves.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's brutal.
There's the miles per gallon average over the trips.
Yeah, they were actually
9.33333.
They were keeping it per tank. They actually got the worst mileage in Nebraska because I think they underestimated the altitude of western Nebraska, and they had to rejet it within 25 minutes. And then that was the one that carried them all the way up. It's actually a well done. It's goofy enough to get you sucked in, and then they start talking actual stuff. So this isn't car related, but our buddy Ian from Apex Adjacent Podcast posted on Twitter. His wife's book is now available for pre-order. Being Mary Bennett, young adult modernization of the Bennett family from all the Jane Austen novels, scheduled for release this coming March. And it is actually already getting great reviews from the folks that have read for the pre-release. So if you have a young adult fan of good books, that's the target audience right there. This is a solid gift. It's on Kindle for $9, hardcover for $18, both on Amazon, or as Ian put it, support a local bookstore when it comes out, but we'll have all those links in our show notes. And congratulations to her.
Nice.
All right.
Upcoming races.
So we've got a long holiday weekend coming up, and there are no upcoming races.
July 4th.
So, I think Lemons showed everyone don't set July 4th races, especially not in Florida.
Facts.
They're not going to work well. So this is a great time to check all your safety equipment: belts, bolts, tires, fire extinguishers. Hey, in the car, in the shop, in the garage, the trailer, the house, your refueling kit, because you lost the pin for that and one of your dumbass teammates dropped it, and it only lost a little bit. It's probably okay still.
You stuck a zip tie through it, going, they'll do it. They flex and it squirts just a little.
Yeah.
We might have done that too.
You get the pre-extinguisher out of it, and
look, it's just sometimes it's a little exciting. Take it as a compliment.
Exactly.
Recent results.
Lemons was at Gingerman overall, and Class A went to Rod Throne Fools. They have won many times in their Mazda RX Yoda MR2 creation. Class B was Rocket Road Racing in their 02 Ford Focus. God's Clothes and Chass was a Cheap Thrills in their 02 Cadillac Eldorado. Org Choice was Mrs. Puff's Boating School, which is so cute, in a 95 Hunter Court. Judge's Choice was Little Enos Racing in a 94 Ford Tempo. Also, all of these cars are amazing so far, which is awesome.
I didn't even know they made the Tempo in 94 still. That's
Tempo was made forever.
Wow.
It was. And I apologize. This is my fault. That Accord was a wagon.
Even better.
That's even better.
Check out 24 Hours of Lemons on Instagram. They posted pictures of it. It is just so well done.
I Got Screwed was Tonk the interference, right? Fits in an 89 Buick Riata. I believe that decision was made right after the judges noticed that it was a Buick Riata. The Road Mangler Cup was a 93 Boring BMW, Wisconsin Crap Racing. Life of the Paddock was Brown Rubber Soul and their gorgeous Mazda 626. Regional award was the Spirit of Fisher Price, and that went to our buddy iRacing Alien first time lemon racer Tyler Stank with the dilapidated racing in a Chevy S10. I'm very sorry that that's your first race is a Chevy S10. It's probably not nearly.
Tyler had never run lemons before.
Never run a meat space race at all.
I think I also struggled a little if I remember correctly seeing their stuff on Facebook. Finally, IOE Freeze Farm Racing in the other Chevy S10. Sounds like a good list of cars.
Totally.
AER was at NJMP's Lightning. Saturday's boring podium was Don't Panic in an E30. At least they had a good name. 2 laps over the Z3 4-banger, not a 4-banger BMW. It's got a 6-liter, but never mind. Or a 6-cylinder, but never mind. 4 laps behind was the BW Motorsports 1. Please tell me that wasn't like a 1 Series BMW.
No, it's just a boring BMW.
Okay. It says like boring. Sunday's podium was just as boring, but closer. Ruben's Performance Garage was a lap over Lime Rocks Drivers Club, who finished a mere 3/100ths of a second over the second Ruben's BMW. So not only was it all BMWs, but 2 of them were even the same team. Keystone Cops in their new Volvo were 16th on Saturday and 15th on Sunday.
Which I think there were 22 cars, so that's kind of sad. Oh,
that's a little list.
So they're sorting out a new car, so that happens. Champ Cars, RVA Graphics, and Wraps Carolina Grand Prix. Saturday, Flat Out Nemesis had their Miata a minute and a half of the RX-7 from GMS Racing. 8 laps back was another Miata from Love Racing. The Dirty Air 75 Chevy Nova was 35th, but first in our hearts. Sunday was Pinky's Out Boring BMW with 2 laps over the race sponsor RVA Graphics Boring BMW, who was 90 seconds ahead of the Prefect Racing Lexus SC300, and the Nova didn't start. Aww.
Lucky Dogs. Salute to the Dogs was at Portland Raceway. Saturday's 7-hour race had Giant Motorsports win 3 laps over Twister Sister and 4 laps over Subframe Racers. Now Sunday it was Twister Sister a lap ahead of AR Motorsports, who was just 3/100ths of a second over the Blue Bulls. The 84 Monte Carlo of the Intimidators, Dale be praised, was 39th Saturday and 28th on Sunday.
Can I pull a couple of last minute additions here? I'd like to mention that the the bracket bracket GP at Thompson Motor Speedway. It's a single day endurance race where you pick the amount of laps you're going to do in each hour, and you enter your bracket, and then you cannot break out, similar to bracket drag strip racing. Our boy Alex Levinson, in some sort of late 80s, I believe it was an Escort, ended up winning the race over our boy Glenn Farney in his S10 by 2 laps. There is a fantastic rundown of exactly how this thing works. Basically, you get laps, like you get the bonus laps started, so that way you're actually can watch the laps click off, and even though you're getting passed, you're actually not getting. It's a very interesting Facebook post. I will post in the show notes. I never really thought about doing the bracket GP, and after reading the excitement that Glenn said, because basically in theory every car is going to cross the finish line at the same time if everybody does their bracket correctly. So at the end of the race, the person who passes the finish line first is the actual winner. So I'm going to shout that out. There was also Boston Winers had a couple of teams, a couple of cars, Too Broke to Care, Punisher GP. So a lot of our Lemons friends participated, and there's money. Hello. So
like
you can
legit
win money, legit money. And the other audible I'm going to carry is Randy Popes. That's seat stealing mother took his class or something at Pikes Peak. I've seen none of the coverage because none of the coverage is live.
He had an all electric. It was a highly modified Tesla
Plaid.
The
Tesla S.
The S with the plaid thing, prepared by. Not by Tesla, by an aftermarket company.
Electrified Performance was the name of the company. So I don't know anything about it, but our boy Randy took home some steel.
And that's interesting, because the original article I had, and I'm glad you put yours in there, was about how Canada is also banning all internal combustion engines by 2035. That's literally in less than 15 years. It's now you are seeing performance companies starting to modify electric vehicles for gearheads like us. I think that's going to be key to the acceptance and adopting of EV transportation.
Yeah, awesome. Listener feedback time. Greg O'Brien posted on our YouTube from an older episode about getting young people involved in motorsports. And he said he works with a wide range of young adult coworkers, 18 to 32, and consistently draw towards electric vehicles as near zero, with its near zero maintenance, above all sorts of coolness or environmental concern. So really, it's a practical decision, he says, for them going electric. They like the idea that you plug it in at the end of the day and it charges, updates, and schedules its maintenance as needed, just like their phone, which they are very comfortable with. They're individuals that have expectations but are painting in broad strokes. It takes a lot of discussion to find common ground and relate experience. We were raised by the post-war and baby boomer generations when there was a desire to mechanically tinker with everything, and everything was crudely imperfect product that could be improved upon. For adults raised in the digital age, that is old school thinking. You boomers, why would you still still boomer. Tinker to improve, but it's all software based. So e-racing and things will probably exponentially grow in the next 50 years, and they will speak in terms of throttle mapping, adaptive suspension programming, and energy conservation strategy. Not so much in the physical tinkering is what he's trying to say. So still so much to be taught and very interesting, but a different generation of racers speaking a different language. Call me a boomer. I'm 49 years old. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I'm not a boomer, and I'm older than you. We're Gen X.
I know. I'm saying call me a boomer.
We're the ones that like millennials and boomers fighting, because we're just sitting over there going, this is funny. This is what you get for leaving us as latchkey children. We don't care.
Yeah.
So Tyler Stank talked about last week's episode, and his question is, does the Carvana effect, which Ike mentioned in our show, Carvana effect mean that I should not bother fixing the ball joints or whatever is clunky on my Mazda 2 suspension and sell it to Carvana for what I paid 3 years and 10,000 miles ago and buy a bigger, better, newer car after the bubble pops? Now, my immediate reaction is yes, don't fix it. Carvana is like CarMax and all these others. They operate on volume. All right. So you're not actually selling it to a person and screwing that person. So absolutely sell it. Chris has got some amplifying data and it's very smart. So listen to what he says.
Do you want to go next, Chris?
I do.
Or Jeff is not smart, so whatever Jeff has to say is not right.
I have an answer for Tyler.
Go for it, Jeff.
Clunking in a Mazda? Effing send it. What are you talking about?
It's fine.
The more abuse you help
Probably
on a cheap Mazda, the better they perform. My Mazda 3 has had a clunk since 100,000 miles in the rear. I have 180. Don't care. Don't even look. Just send it. My P5 had clutch chatter since we took it home from the dealership to 225,000 miles. Embrace the spirit of zero maintenance on a cheap Mazda.
I'm going to say it depends on if you have another daily driver to use for the next year that, isn't like a big block truck that's just going to suck up all the difference in the money you're going to make in fuel and tax and registration and all that junk. So, does it make sense? It depends on you. What's the rest of your situation there, Tyler?
I thought you were going to stop at Sitch.
No.
He's got that MX-3.
Yeah, but that's going to be a race car. And I don't,
Yeah,
Don't try and daily the race car.
Daily the racer for a year. You'll be fine. It's probably fine.
Depends on how much interior it has.
If it's still complete, it's a great idea to daily drive it to get it sorted, but not if it's a strip.
Chrissy, you have the most miles on a single Mazda.
It's true.
I think I have the most miles on combined Mazdas. So we would like to hear
that's
your
not
input.
Oh, that's not fair. I'm still trying to go back and forth on what my answer is. I feel like the problem is it may not be anything too bad. Like I had some clunks and it was a bushing and
motor mount, right?
Well, we've had a couple of them, right? There's a couple things at 250,000 miles it goes bad. I don't know. I feel like it depends on what you want to do with it. If you want to keep it or you're just ready to get rid of it like Jeff is, then get rid of it. Do Carvana, cool. But I feel like it may not be that bad. It might be worth looking at. Keep it for a while. Now's a bad market. So yeah, that's my answer. Okay.
To buy, it's a great market to sell. Yeah.
Sure. But then if you want to replace it with something, you don't want to do that. Al Jones answered Ike's listener question about the biggest mess you've ever made in a car. I was transporting a 7-quart crock pot into work for the office chili cook-off. I had strapped it into the passenger seat. Everything was fine until I got cut off and had to slam on the brakes. The contents of the crock pot then emptied onto the passenger side footwall of the Sentra. After getting to work, I grabbed a manila folder from the back seat and used it to scoop up as much of the top layer of chili back into the crock pot as I could. I felt like Kevin from the office. Yeah, he added, yes, I still entered the car floored chili into the contest and placed second.
I'm sorry. I was laughing too hard. Did you say he came in second?
Yes. He still served the chili.
The visual of the manila folder.
The manila folder. That's the key.
I thought there was going to be something. I was wondering if there was something important in said manila folder. Oh, shoot. My cheeks hurt. That was good.
I would
Thanks
like
for
to
that.
mention that when I spilled the soup, A, it was a medium soup. It was not that big. And B, I ate none of it. I didn't like.
Well, he didn't eat it. He just fed it to other people.
And this is for the exact reason I would is why it would never happen. If something spilled on the floor of Chrissy's car, I'm good. It's probably cleaner than my kitchen counter.
I'm still not eating it. I'm sorry.
I'm totally
If
good.
you don't tell anybody, then nobody's like,
exactly.
tastes a little
Now
furry.
something spills on the floor of Jeff's car. I'm not letting my dogs eat that.
Well, then you
Why?
have to go around all the food and debris that is already on Jeff's floor.
That's exactly right. The only thing down there is food and food containers. So
Yep, I know. I've been there and I've cleaned it out.
I love that debris
Many
is
times.
becoming a thing. That was all on Slack.
And on all that great food tips, we also learned from Ron Harrington that macaroni and cheese is totally a thing, that he used it as a wrap for the macaroni and cheese car in I Lemons at Coda. Macaroni and cheese.
macaroni. Is that like
No,
whack-a-mole? I don't know what's going on there.
no,
Sure.
it's mac-a-weenie. So there's weenies in your mac and cheese.
In your mac and cheese. I get it.
How do you not know that?
No, I get it. I just
Didn't call it
trying to
that.
make a joke. I suck at racing.
Next to last event, keep an eye on that 24 Hours of Lemons I Suck at Racing Facebook page because they'll be announcing the new schedule. Now, right now, they're scheduled for 4th of July. We know that's not going to happen because nobody's going to be there, and you would think Lemons learned. 2-hour enduro. Now, before the race started, we picked number 4 as a winner. That's important in a minute. We were at the Okayama circuit. Actually had 27 cars show up, and this was what was annoying. Very foggy. They had actually set the weather to try and match the Gingerman Meat Space race. So it was hugely foggy, terrible visibility. And still, we've been doing this so long that actually the Lemons Eye races have gotten kind of good, not very crashy. There's a couple of bits of contact, but nothing like when we first started. So overall went to Duclos. But the number 4 winner was actually Becker, who got passed on the last lap by Travis Nelson, who was in 4th, made a pass on the last lap to get into 3rd, and therefore didn't win. So there you go, Jay Becker, the true winner, according to our random survey. And we had a great extended chat with Tyler about his experience in the Meat Space race. And judging from his tone and the pace of his words and the ideas that they have coming out of there, Tyler is so hooked on there. And even we had Ron in the booth for a while, and Ron was like, yeah, one of the greatest times I ever had at a racetrack was just going to New Jersey and hanging out in the paddock. So
I mean,
good for Ron.
He came to the right paddock to hang
It's
out
true.
in.
It's true.
For serious.
Well, he's not a dummy. Duh.
No.
You go to Sasha's paddock and you just get like a rash.
And
A rash and a bowl of soup.
Oh, and kebabs.
And kebabs.
And
yeah.
kebabs.
Oh,
are
I like
delicious.
kebabs.
You eat well. I'm just saying. You just
Yeah.
Well, yeah, or you could avoid the rash, eat well, and drink well at the 3 p.m. paddock.
Don't invite people. I mean, we're great and all, but anyway, E1R race. Wartburger Thief Aaron's choice. We drove Formula V's at Lanier on dirt and found out how fragile they can be. Tumble over 6 times. It's fine. A mere tap in the rear, broken axle, and a toe. Then we headed to the new Chicago street circuit for a variety of NASCARs. Even though Santiago, Sitko, Wartburger Thief were there, only one person was skilled enough that piloting an oversized, overpowered pig of a car through dense urban streets to take the win. Who is that? Who? What? You won?
I'd like to mention that copy was completely written by Mental, and Chrissy wasn't even there. So she's just reading what he wrote.
Yeah.
Yes. Mental won the iRace on Monday.
How?
I
mean, great.
That is the wackiest effing track.
The copy is mine, but the surprise is real.
It's true.
Yes,
It's true.
Yes.
That I can't. I think it was Lady A said this track looks like bow tie pasta, and that's exactly what it looked like. What a wacky track!
There's only like 3 places that it's wide enough to pass.
Oh, it was terrible. Anyway, I don't. That was fine. Whatever. It was NASCAR's on the completely inappropriate thing. I want to talk about the Formula V's in dirt because that was like the most impossible thing I've ever done in my life. That was like, I don't know whether I enjoyed myself or not, but it was like, it was a little random on how to pilot those things. And Santiago is absolutely an alien because he could make it work. And it was,
he's like, I don't know what you guys are having problems with. I'm in 3rd gear and floored.
he would
The whole
drive
track.
by me. I didn't even think he hit me. My axle would break. He'd say, sorry, Jeff. And he'd keep doing laps. I'm like, how did that happen?
It was fun. It was
fun.
And Aaron was waiting for everyone to go, this is the dumbest idea ever, Aaron. And everybody's like, damn it, why can't I do this?
Mhm.
It was actually, it was
It was challenging. Yeah.
And expect more wackiness like that on Monday nights because the Lemons iRacing series is going to take a season break, and we'll be doing this. But you know who never breaks an axle and always expects wackiness?
You are not wrong.
Your mom's never broken an axle. Hi, Chrissy's mom.
Well, I haven't fixed one for her, so that's
how we know.
So no.
That's exactly how we.
There actually was some deep discussion on all of the some of the West Coasters and Midwesters talking about like, what East Coast, where can I get, who was it, Mental, that was asking, where can I get an arrive and drive on the East Coast? Because I've got to come east. Because he's Tyler. I got to come east. I got to get Chrissy's mom's cookies.
Oh, that was definitely yeah.
And then everybody talked about Chrissy's mom's cookies for a little while. So
that's
even people who
awesome.
haven't seen it in virtual racing, they're still talking about Chrissy's mom's cookies.
And are we allowed to share the news about the other parts of your family?
Nobody
okay,
cares.
I'll say because Chris and Chrissy get to be the aunt and uncle times 2, the awesome aunt and uncle.
Yay!
So,
she's having twins.
Oh,
No,
God,
joking.
don't say that.
Main topic time. Hi, everyone. This is Jeff and the crew from Everyone Racers. And tonight we're going to talk about building cages. No, we're not trapping animals. We're not dancing disco. This is part 2. Is it part 2? I can't.
Part 2.
Part 2 of our Building a Cage series. And we're going to do the one thing that probably stops most people from making a good cage. Okay. Because most people can weld and most people can read the design and learn how to do design, but bending is probably the biggest cliff that I think most people face. How to bend, where to put the bend, how to make the bends go correctly. You know, you want it to go like this. You know, you want the door bar to look like that, but how do you actually do it? We're going to talk about benders and bending tube today. Mental, you want to start?
And I think the biggest handicap with that, with a lot of stuff that you can do, there's the buy the expensive thing solution or have the ready-made solution. And then there's the cheap way to get around it. And there's really not a cheap way to properly bend tubing.
Yeah,
no,
go back and listen to our part 1 on this to talk about tubing benders and why and which one dish you should get and why the Harbor Freight one just isn't going to work. And no, you can't pack it with sand or any of that junk. It's just no. There's no way to do this poorly, or no way it's going to work if you do it poorly.
And can I offer someone, if they just want to fast forward and forget the rest of the podcast and just not even have to listen, buy a pre-bent kit. Okay. Because this is not this is going to take some skill and it's going to take some thing. Now, if you want a great cage, you learn to bend yourself.
If you've got a weird car like a Z32,
if you got a weird car, absolutely,
yeah.
But if you got a normal car and you're just trying to get it on the track, and your first cage, maybe think about really buying that pre-bent.
And we talked about those options last time too, about the different places to get them and what to look for, etc.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyway, now on to bending. Who's starting?
Bending. You are. Do it.
Sorry, Mental, you had something to say. Sorry.
I was going to say, with the fluctuation we've seen lately in material prices, sometimes those pre-bent cages are quite a bargain because the company that pre-bends them bought all of that tubing when they were cheap, has them sitting on a shelf, and they need them out the door. So, even if you want to build your own cage, maybe look.
Sure. No, that absolutely. Jim at Roll Cage Components buys it all in bulk, and he's got the stuff in advance.
Price,
yeah.
So let's talk about, you bought that bender. All right. Yeah. It arrived. It showed up at your house. It's there. Now you got to set it up. Where the hell are you going to put it? Okay. This is probably, the number one thing that you got to do, because you can't start bending tube until this thing is secure. And what do I mean by secure? How much oomph and torque and twist do you think you need to bend that 120 wall tubing? And
before you answer, go look at our intro video on our YouTube channel and watch Chrissy bending tubing.
Yeah, you are going to, even if you have the hydraulic setup, it is going to be exerting an extreme amount of torque, and you need to secure that thing to the ground. We have a manual bender, a manual JD squared. So we're going to be talking a lot about that process. But even if you have a hydraulic one or an air over hydraulic, good for you. You spent the money, but you still got to secure that thing. You can't stick it in a corner like a grinder and bolt it to the shop floor. Do you know why? Because you need a 4-foot piece of steel sticking out of it in both directions, and it has to bend around.
Or longer.
Or long, yeah. I was gonna say 4 out of each side, maybe, or 6 or 8. We have a great solution for this. I think it's fantastic, Chris.
It is genuinely one of the most innovative solutions I've ever seen.
So it's on a pedestal, as most of them are, and we put some big old square stock tubing, and we threw a 3-inch square tube into your receiver. Is it 2-inch?
Yeah,
2-inch
because
square.
it's a 2-inch standard 2-inch receiver, like on every truck. So big, it's what, 6-7 feet long.
It's 7 feet long or so. Yeah. And then we put that in the receiver hitch and mount the pedestal as far away from the truck as we can, because we've literally been in the middle of a bend and watched that steel come in real slowly. It doesn't happen fast, and just the side of the truck, and then we have to like take it all apart and rotate it 90 degrees and put it all back together again. So it can't be close to anything. It needs to be really secure. You're going to be pushing, pulling, and yanking this thing. So it's really important where you mount it and how you mount.
The pedestal has extra pieces of square tubing on it, that are mounted horizontally welded to the tube, that are just slightly larger than 2-inch. So the 2-inch tubing that goes into the receiver also goes right through this. So you can kind of slide it around to fit. Another thing that helped us work with this is, if you want it to be a little more secure, jack up the back of the truck with a floor jack a little bit, and then slide the receiver in there. So when the truck comes down, it's loaded, pushing down on the bender, holds it a little more securely. Sometimes you have to put blocks of wood under it, things like that, but
sometimes
works.
Your 220-pound teammate needs to stand on the pedestal.
Yep.
That was a lot easier when you had Sandy, the Range Rover, because the air suspension, which is kind of lower.
Yeah, it's true. Totally is.
Okay, so how the pieces go together. So every bender is going to be different on how the pieces go together. I don't know if that's what you meant by putting in these notes here.
Yeah. Well,
you're going to have to.
The first time we got it, we just stared at it for a while. Like, how do it work?
I feel like sometimes we do that when we put it back together. When we were on a hiatus recently, we were all like,
we should mention we bought this used and we had no instructions. YouTube is your friend here, or the instructions that came with it. If you have your instructions and you put it together the right time the first time, don't lose that piece of paper, because the next year when you go to build another cage, you're going to be like, which pin goes where? But generally, let me give you the general flavor. It's a giant D-shaped die and a grabber that is going to slide along your tube, along that D shape, as the D shape swings in and bend your tube. Usually a big handle or a hydraulic thing on it. But like I said, every one is going to be different. So you really need to follow your manufacturer's instructions here. There's no way on an audio podcast I can describe how to put together your bender, but you got to do it.
And also just know it's going to take you a few times of looking at it.
Absolutely.
I don't know which pin is the where, huh? Yeah, I think I still have the PDF of the instructions we downloaded from JD Squared just to figure out how to put it together.
Yeah.
And then also some of the accessories, Jeff, like an angle wheel, kind of important.
Yeah. You want to describe what that is? Go ahead.
Sure. Well, it's some kind of degree finder, so that you know how much of a bend you have made. Mm-hmm. This is important because if you're not just doing it completely by feel, you've taken a couple basic measurements inside the car to know this needs to be approximately this angle, or especially if you're doing a piece that has 2 bends in it, like on a main hoop, you've got an upper bend and a lower bend. They need to add up to around 90, so you need to know about where you are.
That one was 80. The next one is 10.
Right. Some of them come with angle finders on them, or you can improvise like we did. Metro started screen sharing. There's nothing here yet.
Oh, seriously?
Showing someone bending. Okay, just came on.
There you go. Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
Sorry, I thought that would be a lot faster.
So we should mention that the degree wheel usually sits in the area of the D and has a piece of wiry thing that points at 0, and you can kind of flex it to get it to 0 again. So when you bend
is that
it,
what they normally look like? Not
that
a piece
absolutely
of box and a
is
hair?
what they normally look like.
Yeah.
Ours is a piece of cardboard that I used my iPhone 2, I think it was an iPhone 2, to as a protractor to be like, okay, that's 90.
Fine.
Split it in half, that's 45. Split that in half, that's, I just basically did the math like that. And it has worked for how many cages?
12.
12.
It's a pizza box.
It's a pizza
with
box.
some magic marker on it.
With held up with painter's tape.
Painter's tape.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure we have a coat hanger as the protracting part. Yeah, pointer.
Yeah.
Totally.
Let me
Works
talk about
great.
the test bend. Are we ready to talk about the test bend?
Yeah.
Okay, so the way that you do this, or the way that we do this, and we're not going to talk about the way we do it, we're going to talk about the way some other people do it, is a test bend. And what is a test bend? The very first thing that you bend is going to be not part of your cage. It's going to be something that you basically hold on to forever, or maybe screw up 12 times and the 13th one you hold on forever, is a test bend. So, and we're going to get into this a little deeper, but just know that you can't really tell where the bend is going to be by putting it in the bender the first time. But on that D-shaped thing, you basically want to put a mark. Oh, there's a degree wheel. You basically are going to put a mark on the tube where it touches the D, and then you're going to bend 90 degrees. And when you bend that 90 degrees, that is a bend that is the physical representation of every 90-degree bend that D is going to use, because the D does not change diameter. You can change dies, you can change things. Then you need a test bend for every single D-shaped die. But that is basically the tightest radius that you're going to do. Okay. Once you have that 90 with the magic marker on it, you now can then use that test bend to measure against the chassis and know where to start each bend properly. Does that make sense? This is kind of visual and it's hard to describe, but I think that's probably the best way I can describe it.
I think so. And we've even held it up in the car and saying, all right, where do we need the bend to start? And because we've got that nice mark on the test bend, we know where it has to start in relationship to other things.
Yep. There's a test bend.
Yep. They're really important. Great.
Yeah. And shout out to Hot Rod Magazine for having this great visual dictionary that Mental has found.
Cool.
If you're listening to the podcast, you might want to check it out on YouTube. Hit the like, hit the little bell, subscribe, all those things.
So Jeff, I like your method of how to figure out how to make the first couple bends. Usually you start with the main hoop. That's the centerpiece of the whole roll cage. Everything attaches to that. And you got to start with the big outer part of the hoop first. And, later on we'll talk about notching, and we're going to talk about all the other bits that go into the main hoop to make it a piece. But you've done you're the master of this with us.
Yeah. And 99% of the time it works great. And then the 10th time you have to bend the frick out of the Mazda 3.
Right.
We only made a hole.
We don't have to bend the roof.
Yeah. Sorry, Chrissy.
Just a trapezoid.
It's fine. Yeah. So, but that's because we didn't follow the degree wheel. We didn't do 90 and 90. We did 80 anyway. So here's the deal. We measure from the inside out. Okay. We take a ruler, a measuring device, a tape measure, and we measure what the distance of the entire tube is. We add a couple inches on both sides and we mark the middle. The middle is really important because all of our measurements are going to be from the middle. Okay. Then we mark the middle of the car where we want the hoop to go, right? Literally, if you go into our cars, 99% of them, the other 10% got painted over by Chrissy. There's a piece of Sharpie on the center of the car that says, "This is the middle of the car, dumbass."
Doesn't say
only
that.
once did we have to write it. Yeah. The next one we do is going to say, "This is the middle of the car."
It's front.
Yeah.
And it's this side. You'll see these written right on the chassis. So anyway, once you have the middle and the middle line on the tube, right? You have the middle and the middle. You want those lines to line up as you design the cage. Okay. So then you literally take that test bend with the magic marker towards the inside and jam it in the chassis. Okay. And you kind of play with where you want it. And when you find it where you want it, you measure from the line to the line. Okay.
From the middle to the test bend.
Center line to the beginning of the bend on the test bend. Okay. That distance is where you need to start the bend on the actual hoop. By the way, it's not always symmetrical, even though you thought it was the middle. So you got to measure both sides. All right. I think they've never been more than like a 1/4 inch off, but sometimes it is. So you got, not all chassis are symmetrical. Okay. Because
and you want them to be, but they're not.
Well, there's all like the little pockets and things. And if you have sunroofs, sometimes where the roof goes, it doesn't always give you the same amount of space, even from the inside. So anyway, so measure both sides.
And sometimes you want to bias it toward one side or the other, especially if it's small and you have to pick one or the other. You make a little more room on the driver's side if you have to.
So in a theoretical, I'm just going to throw out a number. Let's say you have a 45-inch wide car. You're going to find that test bend, the radius of the bend from where this starts to the outside of the tube. Remember, because it's the outside of the tube, not the center of the tube, because the outside of the tube has to be inside the chassis. Okay. You might find that on that 45-inch span, if you cut it in half, it's 22 and a half, right? You might find that your lines are only 16 or 17 inches apart, because the radius of your bend is going to take up that 7 or 8 inches. Okay. There is math to do this, but I don't do math real well. So this is the method that we use.
This is the part that if you're looking on YouTube where the cursor is going, that's the part he's talking about measuring. You can't do it in the center. You got to do it on the outside.
Yeah. And Mental, can you, I'm going to we'll leave that up. Oh, crap,
okay. Nope. Sorry. No, give me 2 seconds. Back up.
Not back up for us yet.
I'm sorry.
Oh, there we go. So if you see here, where my white pointer is, usually your line. Your pointer. Yeah.
We're not going to see your pointer.
No. But the YouTube people will see it. Where that line is usually where your magic marker line is. And you can see where Mental's pointer is. The distance there to the distance there is how much you lose in that bend. Make sense? Hit the next one, Mental. Just go to the next slide in the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see
it's taking its time, but I promise you it's coming. Why are you not doing what I ask you, computer? There we go.
There it is.
Saturday night for you.
It's coming. That is the length of the bend. You can really, really see like the magic marker kind of where it started, right on the Mental. Go to the other side of the little bracket there. Right there on the tube.
And you can even see where they mark the tube.
Where they mark the tube. On YouTube. Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. So that's what we do in the line.
Yeah, I'm always amazed every time we build a main hoop, the top piece seems really small.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we do it, I say like that can't be big enough, and then it goes in and it's perfect. So it's because of how much room the bends take, especially because it's stretching the tube to make that bend so that it doesn't crush it. You're thinking like this has got to be way too close to the middle, but it's probably not.
Mm-hmm. If you're really cool, you try and get it as wide as possible because then it acts as a brace. But we're not talking design today. We're just talking about how to make a bend. So go on. Who else wants to say things?
Now that I like it, Jeff, and understanding how much, how far back you need to be to bend it is so key to getting the bends in the right place. Like usually what we'll do is we'll take a tape measure and put it in the places we need. And kind of because the tape measure is flexible, you can hold it and the bent at the spot. And then that gives you an immediate number of this is about how far it is. So you can write that down quickly so you have it. That usually helps. But on the hoop, you're definitely starting from the middle. Like you said, do the first set of bends first, which are usually, I'd say, between 70 and 80 degrees on most cars, depending on how angled the greenhouse is. And then that then follows out to kind of like the belt line of the car, kind of where the bottoms of the windows are. And then you go the rest of the way, and usually you go straight down. Sometimes you go in just a little to find the right landing spot. You don't want to go too far in though, because then you don't have the same stability. So ideally you find a way to go straight down, but it really depends on where a strong flat surface is, or where you build a plinth box, wherever you got a good landing spot, that's where you need to point to.
Mm-hmm. And let me real quick, Chrissy, let me go real quick. It also depends on how mushroom shaped your car is, because there are cars that are skinny in the roof, wide in the hips, skinny at the feet. Okay, Chris.
One tool that I want to point out that we use and fight over, and you can't live without, is the
Sharpie.
That too, silver Sharpie. We fight over the silver Sharpie when you are roller cage tubing is dark or black, and you can't see the end. The other thing was the angle finder with a magnet on it. We have probably 3, and we fight over them, but you need it on the inside, you need the outside, you need it for all of different locations in the garage. You need one at the bender, you need 2 at the bender. He's looking for Sharpies. That's pictures of Sharpies. And one at the notcher, which we're going to talk about soon, I think. So that's I think ours are probably Harbor Freight. They're fairly cheap. We usually lose the magnets off of them, but they're very helpful.
I think I buy one every other cage, and we break one every other cage.
Yeah, that's about right. Another tool that's useful is the angle finder that just has 2 arms on it. So you use the 2 arms to put it in the spots you need to get approximately the right angle, so you know what you're getting, but just by physically holding it in place. Also great for doing exhaust tubing. When you're making exhaust, you need to know how much of a bend to cut or how much it needs to be. When you're under the car, you'll hold that 2-arm degree finder there, and that way you can get out of the car and cut it on the mandrel bend that you probably bought. Mental showing us a digital angle finder that's with a magnet, but it's digital, not analog. We have one of these too. We use it for alignments on the hub stands, but we have used it for this too. You set that on the main hoop and check it that way too.
If we did, we probably
while Mental is doing that, I'm going to share this one. Screen share, just to show how cheap it is. Magnetic.
That's it.
Magnetic angle
89
finder.
cents.
$8.98. You're very close.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Sorry.
One tool company angle finder.
The exclusive Earn Honey Gold is 89 cents.
At Lowe's.com. All right.
Lowe's.com.
Got it.
$8.
Yeah, worth it.
I'm pretty sure. Sorry
Get a couple.
Yeah, there you go. All righty.
Great.
Does anyone want to do this math? I think we can show that on the screen, and I think we could describe it. There are math people out there who might want to know how to do it on math.
Go for it.
Okay, hold on. Let me.
No, I'll do this. I'll do the screen share. Since your dad was a math teacher, you walk us through the
Got it.
math.
You do the screen share, and I'll do it. And I'm just going to tell you, I don't do this. Waiting for it to pop up. There we go. All righty. So if you have the paperwork from your bender, it will give you things like the numbers that are the radiuses of your bend and the stretch, and it will give you the math that you can do.
You can also just measure your bender die to know the radius.
But the stretch isn't there.
True.
Which is what got Bruce in trouble, because he tried really hard and then he screwed it up. Pi x 2 times the center line of the radius equals z, the radius of your bend, z4 equals the 2. This is really long. Just here, move the stuff out of the way. For the engine nerds, if you want to know how to do it, there is a math. It is on the screen, but it uses pi. It uses all kinds of things. It uses the number specifically from, not that kind of pi. But basically, there's a bend percentage and there's tube strength. Tube stretch length times the bend percentage equals what. This is a confused. I don't know how to do this because I don't do it. I jam the piece of metal into the chassis and I measure, and 99 out of 10 it works.
And there are visual learners like us that understand things as we see them happen, but then there are also conceptual people that can do all of this math in their head, and it all works out just fine.
Yeah.
So we're giving you options.
I like the additional point down there, and this is something we didn't mention, but tubes tend to spring back a little bit when you bend them. We know this. So you overbend the tube just a little bit. We kind of like bend, relax, hold it tight. And then that's really the measurement. It's not the measurement when you're applying the pressure. It's the measurement after you release pressure, but then hold it tight against
gentle pressure to take the slap.
Exactly.
Takes the slap out of the bender, really. Yeah.
That's your actual measurement of how much you bent.
You can unbend by a little tiny bit, like 2 or 3 degrees, by doing things like putting the small end under the tire of the truck and having several people hang on it, or, blocks of wood and people standing and jumping on things. Like, you can do it just a little bit, but if you're more than a couple degrees off, it's not going to happen. Don't.
Need a lot of
right.
people,
a lot of heavy now a door people. Bar or a or
what
a
else can you
gusset
get?
Or something, right?
And can we be honest for a moment? You're going to screw stuff up, and you're going to have wasted.
Yeah.
Every cage we screw up one bar badly.
Sorry.
Everyone, no matter what it is.
And usually, hopefully, we can make them out of door bars. We cut off as much as we possibly can without the bend and weird
It's usually
spots.
the first forward bar is the one that gets screwed up.
Forward bars are really hard, everybody.
They are.
There's
too many angles and stuff.
Exactly, because in addition to angling it down, there's also a bit of a twist to it, because sometimes the A pillars flare out a bit. But it is important to remember, both in the price and the reality, is tubing doesn't expire. So if you screw it up, I mean, okay, get mad, but figure out what you did wrong so you don't repeat it. But do not throw that tube away. If nothing else, tuck it into the side of your trailer, take it to the track, because someone's going to need it.
Don't do that. Make something cool at your house. I have multiple buckets of cut off ends, because I'm like, someday I'm going to make something out of this. So I haven't, but I have a lot of tubing to do.
True.
So.
But the reason I say
your next cage.
Yeah.
Let me do a real quick share.
There you go.
The reason I say take it to the track is, how many times have we been sitting in the pits and it's their first ever race, and they came up and go, hey, we just need this one bar to pass tech.
Sometimes, yeah.
I'm showing on the screen, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, all of us doing the slightly unbend dance,
which looks a lot like Jeff's background when we first started doing the Zoom meetings of all the guys from Eastern Europe.
Dancing. Yeah.
Chrissy, how well did this work?
Not well at all.
Well enough.
No.
Exactly.
No.
It worked some.
It's a little.
It's because the diagonal bar was already in there that it wasn't.
So So the people that did not see that picture, there was a bunch of mans standing on a bar that's supposed to be flat, or trying to get it flat. One side is kicked up a little bit, so everybody's holding on to each other, trying to get that and jump up and down and try to get that piece of.
We had under a block of wood on one side at the low spot to try to be able to. Get
this is the thing
out.
About the unbending thing is with the exception of Chris and Chrissy in that picture, these are not people who skip meals.
No.
I'm not even I'm just holding people up. I'm not even standing on the bar, because there's no reason on that. I'm not helping much.
You need people who have mass.
That's a good job for them.
And Chrissy's steadying people because she's still the strongest of all of them.
Not helping when I'm trying to fix stuff. Okay. Do we talk about the main hoop enough, or do we need to, because we're talking about main hoop, should we continue with that?
We're really just talking about bending.
Yeah, that was bending.
Okay.
So we're going to talk. Yeah, we're going to add the bending and the notching into the next section of how to actually make the main hoop. So, Chrissy, if you want to talk about notching, because you are the notch master.
I am the notch master. Yeah, and
it's my favorite superhero, by the way, the notch master.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. So how would I even carry around my drill press and my chop saw and my okay, anyway. So
like Thor's hammer, you just reach and it comes to you.
Sure, that sounds great. Okay, so what we use right now, we use as a drill press with a Harbor Freight notcher, and we actually just bought a new one because our last one was out of round and was messing things up. So what are there? I think I just looked them up. They're 50 something bucks for the actual notcher, but this really works well because it gives you the
check your notchers before you leave Harbor Freight that they're not welded backwards.
Dude, that was so annoying, especially when we were ready to set it up. And who does that? Yeah, so the stick was upside down. Yep.
Eastwood also makes a notcher for about $120.
That's a lot.
Yeah. The notcher itself is not nearly as important as having a good hole saw.
Sure, but there's a lot of parts to this that make it good, right? So
Absolutely.
the drill press is integral, I think, because the notcher, when you put the the tubing in, it wobbles a lot. It's like we said with the bender, the force on that to make it so that you're cutting through very thick metal and you have to make it all the way through, holding on to it is even difficult. So I think our setup works really well. The Harbor Freight one has got us through 10, maybe not all 10. Maybe we might have replaced it
we're
since
now
then.
in our second one.
Right. Okay. So then we have used the same one for the last 10 cages, 11
but
cages.
we should have replaced it probably a cage
Fine.
and a half ago.
Sure. But still, I mean, so that's why it's saying, Harbor Freight. And even that's when old Harbor Freight was not necessarily the best quality as it is now, though I think it's basically the same one. It works out really well. So, and then we have replaced the hole saw for, we can get usually through a whole cage with one hole saw, if not more. So we really don't have to replace them very often. So that's
not every cage, but probably every third.
Sure. And we occasionally use it for other things just because it's helpful. And so, and then cutting oil, which it's great when your best friend walks in and gives you a bottle of something that's wrapped up. And he says, I bought you a present. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this present? And here it's cutting oil. And I was like, oh.
Tap magic. And this is why the hole saws last as long as they do, using a good quality fluid and not going too fast on the drill press. You got to keep it on one of the slower speeds. Yeah, mental.
And I did this when the one cage I built without you guys. For something that's got the kind of torque but low speed that you want, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist to your friends. So you buy like an old Craftsman, well-made drill press that will accept the jig for your notcher on there, because those are designed to sit there and just turn low speeds, especially if you get the good bladed hole saws. And yes, use the cutting oil like you use spices when you're making chili. Just be generous with it.
But it also does spill and spit when you are trying, because you're spinning stuff and you're making the metal cut. I mean, we can get into safety later, but just thinking about the cutting oil gets hot because you have a lot of metal spinning on metal. So I think so we also, I would really suggest the notcher. Like, you really can't do this with a hole saw on a drill, because especially since the notcher has angles on it. So you need to be able to angle the piece of metal to the angle of wherever you need that cut. And the next thing that you are going to need absolutely is a chop saw. So you need to be able to cut the metal the tubing that you're going to use. And when you're going to make what it's called a fifth. Well, I don't know if it's actually called a fish mouth, but that's what we call it, a fish mouth.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. That's fine. I wasn't sure if that was technical. That's what we call it. It's a little C. That's what you're going to try to make your piece of tubing fit onto your other piece of tubing. And that the one piece of tubing is which you're making that notch, that fish mouth into, makes it hook onto the, and attach and seal around as closely as you possibly can to the other piece of metal, other piece of tubing. So you can't stuff a whole lot of metal into the notcher. So you have to cut it, and you have to have only a little bit at the end to be able to make that fish mouth. Make the hole saw that is going down onto the piece of tubing has to grind through the whole piece of tubing. So it's difficult to get through, and you can't put a whole circle that goes straight down over the piece of tubing to get through all of the walls of the tubing. Yes.
You need to cut the tubing to the angle you want the fish mouth to be before you try to fish mouth it.
Yes. That's true too. So that's why you need the angles on the chop saw.
I'm going to throw up a quick share here to show you why a fish mouth is important. Okay. Just like Chrissy was saying, but it's awful visual here.
Yep.
You need, I'm holding my hand up like a shark mouth. You need a shark mouth that's going to attach to that.
Turn your hand sideways. So
yeah. Sorry, sideways. So you need the shark mouth to touch the other tube in a way that it wraps around the tube. Think about a shark biting something, a tube. A shark, Jaws, at the end of Jaws 2, he chomped on the cable because Brody was hitting it with the thing. That's how it attaches, because this is how you weld it. You need the 360-degree contact from tube to tube.
It's also like a C and an O, right? Like if you have the O is the full tubing, and you're putting a C around it. Yes.
Yep.
And the thing is, so the chop saw, and again, it's one of those, oh my gosh, I've already invested so much in tools. I could just do this with my die cutter, or I could just do this with a grinder with a cutoff wheel. You can't, because you will get flex in that wheel, even on the grinder, and you will not get that straight cut. And then it's a tiny little bit of variance in every step on there. So again, Facebook
also sucks doing it that way.
Yeah.
it really does.
It's
A
the
good chop
worst.
saw with a good blade is a 12-second, ching.
Oh, ours is not like that. Ours
sitting
is a
on the
lot more
grinder.
than 12 seconds. But everyone's sure there's one cut per cage that we have to take a little bit off with a cutoff wheel and a grinder, and is the worst.
And having that to shape it is fine. But if you're
Like
worried
once.
but if you're worried about spending that, again, a chop saw is a fairly simple but precise tool, and they are available cheap all the time on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace.
You can't do it with you can't do it with cutoff wheel. It's not. You
No,
can't.
don't even
You
try.
can, but you're a
No.
masochist. It's
No.
terrible.
Yeah.
It's gonna
Or
result
even
in a 4-page.
Yeah, or sawzall. Just don't.
Yeah, like I've done it for a bar here and a bar there at the track, and said, "This is terrible. How does anybody do this? I don't want to do this ever again." And that's for one notch. Jeff.
Can I be the dissenting voice here?
No.
Sure.
You are a masochist. We know this.
HAMSA uses cutoff wheels,
No.
and he
For all of
also uses this website, which I'm going to pull up here. So this is for
Which is
people
linked
who
on
do.
this is
Link
linked in our
will
show
be in the
notes,
show
by the
notes.
way.
Absolutely, it's a
This is
tube-
actually good. Yeah.
It's a tube and pipe notching calculator. So this is what HAMSA does. And you can put in your tubing diameters, and you can put in the angle. And if you see this here, Chrissy, this little square thing with the wave on it, this prints out in paper. He then cuts this and puts it on the tube and draws it, and it gives him what the fish mouth should be. I'm going to show you how this works here.
That's
Basically,
great if you have a plasma cutter.
you see what's going on there?
Yeah.
So when you
This
do
is
that,
so HAMSA and so
this
not
is
us.
so HAMSA and so not us.
And I would also, there's no
I-
way HAMSA chops his initial pipe with a cutoff wheel. He uses a cutoff wheel and a grinder to do this precision level
look
that
at
you're showing
that.
now.
This is what it looks like. This is from the ham. And you can see when you get the piece of paper, you transfer it to the tube, and it gives the line of the entire fish mouth.
I mean, it's enticing.
Right. With a plasma cutter, that'd be great. Then you just put it in the cutter and
Absolutely. Like I
draw
said,
it
I
out.
just wanted to say, if you're
Oh,
a
yeah.
math person who wants to do this, this does exist, and HAMSA makes a lot of damn cages.
Yeah,
So
totally.
Okay, but if you don't do this, and I made this your part because you usually hand me the fish mouth. So do you have any suggestions for how you test, how you make the angle? Where do you figure out? How do you draw a fish mouth and get it to the next person?
Okay, so this is where that 2-stick angle finder is going to be really important. Okay, basically, let's talk about the proverbial, because I think this is the easiest thing to understand. If you have the main hoop, you then now need to do the down bars, the 45-degree down bars that go backwards.
Let's talk about the diagonal, the main hoop diagonal.
main
because
hoop diagonal. That'll work.
This is our part of our next topic. So we'll
Sure,
roll
sure,
into
sure.
that and do it all together.
So basically, the main hoop, it is a big U. It is on the ground. It is not yet in the car. Okay, does that make sense, everybody? Hoop on ground, no car anywhere around. You take a straight piece of tube, you lay it across the U shape where you want it. Does that make sense?
Which is the top of
go
it
ahead.
is over the driver's head.
Right.
And the bottom is down by the passenger side floor. Not at the bottom, but with enough room that you can weld it and stuff around it.
And we're going to do a show on design, so don't worry about design. We're really talking about method more today. Chris is right. That helps you visualize what it is you're doing. But you're basically making the diagonal across the U. Okay? You lay it on top of each other. It is really important. This is the physicalness of designing the cage. And then you take that Sharpie. Remember, we're always fighting for the Sharpie. And you draw a line on the tube that you're going to cut, exactly in the center of the tube, or maybe a little longer, because you can always cut a little bit more off. It's really hard to add a little on. Okay. You draw that diagonal right on the tube. All right. And then you cut it. And then, you measure it also. You use the little 2-stick thing and you measure it, and hopefully it's really close to 45, because that's what you're looking for. You need those measurements for the fish mouth, because where the fish mouth is going to hit is going to be at that angle.
And if the angle of the tubing cut is different than the angle of the fish mouth, then it's not going to fit very well.
Right. So when you draw that line, you now have created something that you can measure with the protractor. You measure with the protractor and you use that number to angle the fish mouthing device. So that way the hole saw goes into the tube at that angle. Notcher, yes.
Yep. And our notcher has a degree diagram on it, so you don't need to have the magnetic one on it. You can just put it at the mark that it is.
Absolutely.
So, okay. I'm going to go an even sketchier way that works for me too.
Can I really quick bring up the picture of the notcher and show
sure.
the angle thing?
Yeah.
There we go. See, we definitely probably should have just made a whole PowerPoint on this thing, but okay, so
it doesn't help the people who are listening.
True, that doesn't.
Yeah.
So you can see this is the Harbor Freight tubing notcher that we do. You can see the black part. If you see the back, it has an angle finder. So that actually spins down. You can see the slot where it turns. It spins down and makes that tube touch that hole saw at an angle. And that is the angle that you need to follow. You never do this. What they're doing, they're cutting a giant tube without it being cut off.
This is what I was saying you can't do.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're like chewing it straight through.
I know.
Like, the only time you would do that is if you had a much larger tube in the bottom and a very small hole saw and you're trying to put a hole in it.
Yeah, and stop halfway. Yeah. But
if you only use 1/2 of the hole saw, because you're only cutting on 50% of the tube, your hole saw will last twice as long.
Well, also I think that's too deep a notch. I only like to go like 1/3 of the way into the hole saw, and I think it ends up being about right. All right, so here's
a little bit more deeper sometimes on the angled ones.
Yeah. Here's a sketchy way I do it. I hold the tubing up to where it's going to go. I look at it usually with one eye closed, and I look at it with the eye that's open, and then I draw a Sharpie line where in parallel with the tube that's already there, about 1/3 of the diameter of the tube in. That's about 1/3 of a tube overlap. That's the angle cut. Then I also mark the very top of it with a notch along the length of the tube, so that I know where the top of it is. Because with the tubes at a weird angle, who the hell knows where it's going to be? It's like in a door bar, especially.
Well, and you also, because you have to notch it on both ends,
yep.
So they'll get twisted.
And then lastly, I put a C across that top mark, where the deepest part of the C is where the deepest part of the notch is. So I can hand this to somebody and say, okay, they know the top, they know the cut angle, and they know how deep to notch the tube.
Mm-hmm. That is absolutely the way we do it. And we frequently talk about like the teeth versus the cheeks. Like, where do you want the teeth is the part that
how deep you want
how deep you put it in. So the fish mouth imagery is really important, because that's what you're going to be doing the whole time.
And also, especially if you're new to this, do one that's not deep enough. It's easy enough to do it again if you need to. So you can cut it's like, cut a little off and so do it to fish mouth, and knowing that if you're not clear on how deep the mouth needed to be, or, not really clear on the angle, want to make sure it's right, it's easier to do it again. So you can just put it right back in and do it a little deeper, do the same thing again. Cuts a little bit.
A lot of people talk about, don't do it too deep and then fix it with the grinder. We rarely fix with a grinder.
Yeah.
If you measure correctly and you notch correctly, it's really better to go back to the notcher and fix it if you got to take a millimeter off or twist it a little than it is to try and fix it with a grinder. every time we've tried to fix with a grinder, it's been a problem.
You never get the radius quite right.
You never get the radius right. Absolutely.
And I can only think of, there's a few times where I know that we've needed to take a little bit off one side, maybe if at the down bars, because they have, like Mental was saying, that they have a little twist in them. Sometimes if you've got it, when we put it, the whole thing in the car, it doesn't fit exactly as you planned, but it's very rare. I'd say, there's one or two bars that we occasionally try to take a little bit off.
Before we move on to the main hoop, real quick, I'm going to be the safety nerd because they're all smarter than I am. You hear him talking about the teeth and the saw and the hole saws, using little tiny saw blades, and it's making little tiny chunks of metal. So wear some closed-toed shoes because when they land on your foot, they're hot and they burn. Ask me how I know. Wear some eye protection. There's going to be flying metal chips, not just from when the hole saw is doing there, but from when everybody inevitably picks up the pipe and goes and blows everything all around the place. The edges of the notches are going to be sharp, and they're going to be hot right as you pull it out of the notcher. Have some gloves on, not plastic
and chop saw.
And the chop saw, all that stuff's going to be warm. Don't wear any loose clothing. It's going to get caught up in the rotating mass. That will on there. And when you're notching, as we said 100 times, go slow and keep the saw teeth lubricated.
Yep. Safety flip-flops. The first time you notch wearing your safety flip-flops, you're going to say that's a big nope.
Even it's gone through shoes. Like if I wear you wear sneakers and they're not actual like close, they're close.
Like leather. Yeah. If I've run my old running shoes that are made of like plastic and stuff, it'll melt right through those.
Yep,
yeah.
It has. Yep. That's what I usually have worn. Yep. Absolutely. And hot is for serious. It gets like I've burnt. We probably all burned ourselves on.
So let's put this all together. We've already discussed half of this topic of this third part of making the main hoop. So I'm going to build on what we already have. So if you've got your bender set up, you got your notcher set up, everything's fine. You've done what Jeff said and mark from the middle, figure out the length of the bend. You've got your first bend, start with one side, then the other of the bigger bends. Then you measure down, same method, do the smaller bends. So I'm glossing over this, but you'll do it. You'll figure it out when you do it. I'm going to talk about the next steps beyond this. You'll get to a point where the hoop looks like it's the right shape. You might have to go retweak a couple bends a little bit. Okay, it's going to be the right shape, but it's be too long. But you know where it's going to land. So usually we like to put a 2-inch hole saw on the floor to let the hoop go through. Then we can lift it up into place and mark it with a Sharpie at the floor level to know where to cut it off. And that's often not a straight cut. It often has an angle to it. So be aware of that. Other people like to make plinth boxes, which is fine as long as you're making plinth boxes that have support under them and are not just a cookie cutter. Because some people make these boxes by just welding, eighth metal to your sheet metal.
Can you say what that is real quick?
Sorry, plinth box is like, imagine I'm building a little box under your roll cage, between your roll cage tubing and the car. And it's just designed with 5 pieces of metal or 3, 4, whatever space in your car is.
A stage for your roll cage to start from.
That's perfect. You want to make sure that you have metal at the same diameter underneath that as a support, because if you just weld the 1/8 plate to your sheet metal, if you actually do go upside down, you have just made a cookie cutter at the bottom of your roll cage that's just going to poke through your sheet metal, and you're just going to lose all that height. So we don't really like to do that way. But usually what we do is, again, 2-inch holes in the floor that are going to get covered up by the spreader plates. So
the only time you really use it is if you have a really irregular floor or a highly angled floor.
Exactly.
And a lot of sports cars are like that because the chassis or the floor reinforcements, it's not quite enough. So when I had my 996 caged, they had to build plinth boxes, and actually they used really nice thick metal and they curved it. So rather than having a square, it was a reinforced piece.
It's a great way to tie into rockers too. If there's not enough room, like if the rocker doesn't have enough room to land on it and you don't want to go inboard far enough, it's a great way to add a little more room. But again, the main thing I was trying to say is have some support under those plinth boxes. They're not cookie cutters. No. All right. So the way I'll keep going the way we usually do it. You've got the hoop through the floor. You've got it up into place. You've marked, cut off the feet at the right spot. So now you cut off the feet at the right spot and angle. Great. So now you can put this in the car and slide spreader plates under it, and it is in the right place and you're happy with it. This is the big U. Okay. Now you've got to add the diagonal and the harness bar to complete this. And it is way easier to do all this welding on the floor than in the car. So take the hoop back out, put it on the floor. And now, just like just said before, take a piece of tubing that's a little bit longer than you need, lay it on top of the hoop as it's lying on the floor, with one end down by the passenger side foot, other one just above the driver's head. Draw the lines parallel with the main hoop, about a third of the way or halfway into the tubing of the hoop on both. Cut them. Lay it back on the hoop. Is it good? You did all right? Fantastic. If not, trim. And so now when it's on there, now you can mark, like we said before, mark the top of each notch and then mark how deep you want it to be. Then set your notcher for the angle of the cut that you made for each of them. And if you don't know it, use your angle finders to measure. Get those correct. And then go ahead and notch. And now there's another thing. You've got now these two notches that are on this one bar that have to be in the same plane so that it all meets on both sides of the main hoop.
Typically 180 degrees out.
Right.
If you did one side up, the other side's got to go down.
Exactly. So that's why I like marking it very carefully while it's in space, so I don't do it upside down, because definitely done that. So the next thing though,
this is where it's helpful that if you wrote on your main hoop front, back, or left, right,
you have to,
because you put it in and out of the car like 7-8 times. You need to know that when you're setting it on the ground, which side is the front and which side is the back.
And a lot of times you're doing it when it comes in and out of the car, it doesn't exactly just slide right in and out. Like you're putting all right, put one leg out of one door and then up another one, and then you got to lift it out of the roof. Yeah. So
what's great about having a Mazda 3 with a hatch, because how many times did we throw it back in and out the back door?
Totally.
As opposed to when you guys were doing the 300Z, and I think it had to come out of the exhaust pipe once.
Yeah, pretty much.
I didn't know my new office socks had stocked it on the bottom until I just stuck it in the camera.
Good.
Now, all the viewers know as well.
So to make sure these are in the same plane, your notcher is vertical, or at least very close to vertical. So then you can pick a piece of scrap tubing in the notch you've already made on the other side.
Yes.
Stick that in the C, put the angle finder on that, and get that close to vertical. That way you know they're in the same plane. But don't just rely on sitting there closing one eye and saying, yeah, it looks good. It's about there, right?
The magnet compass is awesome here. You stick it right on that piece of tubing, you turn it until it's at 0, and you tighten it in the notcher.
Totally. So
another great place for the little cutoff piece that you screwed up last time. Keep it near the tube.
Absolutely. Or the extra, that like 8 inches you cut off the bottom of the hoop or the diagonal bar. Perfect. So yeah, let's assume this all worked. If not, go listen to what Chrissy and Jeff just said. Now you're just going to weld it in, and this is welding. It's nothing special about it. I usually try to do cage welds in 4 segments per tube, because you're never really going to go all the way around. You don't have the angle for it. So try to get, tack it and then do a quarter of it, reposition yourself, do another quarter, reposition, keep going.
Get your best welder to do it.
Yes. Yeah. This is not the place to learn. Nope. So that's in. And then the harness bar is kind of the same thing. The diagonal should be 1 piece. The harness bar can be 2 pieces because it's got to go across. Start with the piece behind the driver. This is the important one, because the spacing and height needs to be right for your seat. You need to have your seat already in place in the car, and then you need to put the bar back in the car with the diagonal in, and then measure from the seat to the harness bar so that the angle of the belts will be from 0 to 15 degrees down. That is the official rule. So it's coming down off your shoulders, not too far down. So once you know where that is, hold a piece of tubing up against the hoop, mark where the top of the tubing is, put your magnetic angle finder on it to get it level, and then repeat what we just said about notching the other one, except for this one side is going to be 90 and the other side is going to be an angle around 45. So usually what we like to do is cut that 45, notch that 45, put it in the car with the notch of the 45 on the diagonal. And then, the other side, not. It's sitting next to the tube. But, it's a lot easier to cut and notch a straight 90 than it is to do it for the 45. So get it in the right spot again, and then do the drawing that we told you before. Mark it about a third of the way in. That's your cut. Mark the top. Mark the depth of the notch, which is where the tube is. Give it a shot.
And they need to line up, everybody.
Yeah.
Who has the harness bar? Need to look like this.
This is just the driver's side one. This is the one you have to have, but there's no reason not to put the other side on the passenger side. I see some people without that. It's like, all right, you're really worried about the 3 pounds you just saved. And,
I think some sanctioning bodies require it on both sides.
A lot of them do. Some, not all of them do, but
yeah.
It's a dumb reason not to put it in. Just put that side in too. So, and that's really do the exact same thing just with the other side. In fact, if you cut the angle for the first part of the harness bar, the off cut, it's the same angle. So there you go. Amazing how that works.
And it's a lot of triangles. We again, we're going to get into design another one. So if you're too high up, that means your tube's a little long.
Yep.
Make it a little shorter, and it's going to go lower.
Yep.
Unless, of course, you're on the other side, then it's the opposite.
Gives you the option of always bolting in that passenger seat, having a set of belts, and now you've got an HPDE platform.
Absolutely. So last 2 other things that I want to talk about, and we're done with the hoop. Gussets. Gussets are wedges of metal that go in the angles between the 2 tubes. They can also be taco gussets, which is like a piece of sheet steel that wraps around them all, but that's more advanced. We're just going to talk about normal wedge gussets here today. So either just really take a piece of square like bar stock and cut it into triangles that fit in the triangles between where your tubes intersect. We found at our metal supplier this big stack of these washers. They're these big square washers with rounded corners with a hole in them, and they're super cheap. And we just cut them diagonally, and they work great for gussets. So as once you've tacked it in place for whatever one you're going to do, stick that gusset in there right between the tubes that are angled, and in the middle there. It provides an incredible amount of extra strength in that joint and a lot of extra weld area. So if you can gusset, I would recommend it. Yeah. So Jeff found this.
These are galvanized.
Washers.
Don't buy the galvanized ones because you'll get galvanized poisoning.
No.
This is what they look like. They are giant square washers with a little hole in the middle, and you just hack those suckers in half, and you got all the triangles you need in the world.
Yeah, it's so easy and cheap, and
it's like when we get the chop saw out. That's the first thing that we do. We have.
And the best thing about this is the little circle in the middle. That's where your weld is. So you're not
sometimes.
like going.
Sometimes, yeah.
Or is it in the angle?
It all depends on where it is.
Yeah, sure.
But this is the last thing. You need a grounding point. A lot of times the ground clamps on welders don't really go around roll cage tubing very well.
No.
So take a washer and stick it down on the roll cage in a spot where it's not going to hit anything eventually. Like we usually like kind of on the passenger side and the inside of the hoop, and weld a bit of flat stock or a washer to the hoop as your very first thing you do. Now, for the rest of the time you're building a cage, that's where you put your grounding clamp for your welder, and it'll give you a good, solid, clean, strong ground, which you need for good quality welds.
Wow.
There you go. You have a main hoop.
I am so impressed with our discussion tonight.
This is real, actual consumer advice. And if you don't care about building race cars very much, and you are asleep now, and we're sorry.
I'm sorry. Well, I gave him the option to fast forward.
That's true. Okay.
Whew. Main topic done. Anyone have any last bits before we move on to
making a roll cage is fun?
Your favorite part of the show and mine.
Actually, making a roll cage is fun. It really is. It is. And we talked about, we recently had a team member test one of the roll cages that you guys built. Not as much fun, but definitely a sense of pride when they walk away from it.
Yeah. That cage held up perfectly, and everything around that cage.
The rest of the car bent, but
Yeah. The Nissan part's not so much, but
Yeah.
anything
Not that we
did was
expected
okay.
anything from them.
But that's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Just
The
tip
tip.
time.
Tip.
Sorry, folks,
Yep.
not going to be Chrissy this time. But we're going to talk about fireworks safety. Now, we've linked a video in our show notes to the Missouri Fire Department video about fireworks safety. And it opens up with this great piece of advice. Don't be a dummy. So many cities do not allow fireworks. They do allow sparklers, which is baffling to me. Sparklers are actually the leading cause of injury in children on the 4th of July. So yeah, there we go.
Looks like Jeff bought his fireworks. He's
Oh no, Jeff's like he's showing
What-
the Mac Daddy box you buy at the grocery store.
or the parking
Would you-
lot outside.
Yeah, exactly.
strip mall.
Hey, buddy, you ready to celebrate the 4th? Good. Come over here to the van. Now, what a lot of folks don't know about sparklers is it is a mixture of hardened chemicals on a very thin wire or a stick, and they burn slow, and they burn at about 1,200 degrees, which is hot enough to melt some metals. And who does everyone give these to? Oh, the kids. Oh,
Children.
you're in kindergarten. You can't have the jumping jacks. Here, take this welding stick that I've just lit on fire and do that. Now, here's some tips for them. So, a sparkler hole, if you have someone who you're handing a sparkler, do not let them sit down. Have them stand up, because if it goes awry, they can throw it away. Wear closed-toed shoes. Remember, we were talking about when you're grinding, you don't want hot burning things landing on your feet. Sparklers are 1,200 degrees. So, not flip-flops. When you're handing someone the sparklers, give everyone their own sparkler, then light it. Yes, you can use another sparkler to do it, but don't start handing people lit sparklers, especially small children. They might grab it in the wrong spot, and then you're taking a trip to the emergency room. Everyone using a sparkler needs to be about 6 feet from each other. I know that sounds all kind of like, oh, you're just a nerd, until they start swinging them around and burning somebody else with them. You're not supposed to wave them around. Definitely don't toss them. Don't throw them. The stick itself, once all the chemicals have burned off, that can be hot for quite a long time afterwards. Throw it in a bucket of water, which you should have around when you're doing your 4th of July fireworks anyway. And honestly, you probably shouldn't let a kid hold a sparkler directly. It's very thin wire. It's very hard to control. One of the best tips I saw when I was researching this is take a carrot, stick it in a carrot. Then they're not going to burn themselves. Just something that's not going to conduct heat or melt or catch fire.
I see a kid like trying to eat the carrot.
Yes,
Brush
'cause
that
that's
black
what,
stuff
'cause that's
off,
what
it's
kids
fine.
want. Ooh, carrots on the 4th of July.
Clamp it into a pair of vice grips.
Yes, there you go. So just think about that stuff when you're doing your 4th of July things. Yeah, there'll be the idiots launching bottle rockets out of the butt crack or something like that. But when you're thinking about little kids, remember the example you're setting, and you're handing them flaming things. And honestly, I still say they're safer with bottle rockets than they are with sparklers. But that's just me. Just a tip. Don't be a dummy.
Cool. Can I give you a tip about sparklers that I learned when I was like 9, and my cousin John down in Virginia, he lived in the middle of a pine forest. There were pine needles everywhere. Do you know what I learned? What the tip was I learned from John?
Pine needles are flammable.
Don't throw the sparklers. If you throw them, they look really cool, but then they spike into the tree, and then they just throw sparks all over the tree itself.
That's great.
Okay.
Yeah. Pine trees are particularly bad because they tend to explode when they're on fire, because the sap goes to vapor very quickly.
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome.
Do we know what we're doing next show?
We'll figure it out next week. I mean, yes, another great show coming to you next Thursday.
Maybe another guest show? I know we had some guests moderately lined up. No.
We'll come up with something.
We'll come up
Soon.
with something.
Come back. We'll be here.
We try not to do back-to-back guests, so I know that we have a couple in the waiting room.
Actually, I'm sorry. I take that back. We do know. We have John Polnick of Bid Nerds
That's what I
scheduled
thought
for the
was
7th.
happening.
I lost track of days, and I failed to put it in the show notes. So join us, John Polnick, director of the Porsche Road Trip, several local commercials here in the Las Vegas area, and host of Bid Nerds, will be joining us to talk about the stuff that he likes to do with cars. He's not a builder, but he's definitely a car enthusiast.
Yeah. And Chrissy, they want you on the show very bad.
I heard. I know.
I know.
I'm so
like,
excited.
really bad. Yeah. So get back to him.
All right, so thank you for downloading us. We hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Everyone Racers. We also hope you'll join us in the world of driving, racing, and building, because everyone can be a racer, even you. If you enjoyed this podcast, subscribe. It's totally free. If you're watching on YouTube, push the little like and subscribe button, you fool.
Because that's how YouTube works. That's how we get promoted. When you click the like and you click the subscribe, that. Yes.
Yeah. Even if you hated us, click that thumbs up, or go to YouTube, or iTunes, give us a 5-star rating. Tell us why you didn't like us. If you have any questions or show ideas, drop a comment on our Facebook page, Everyone Racers, or email us at everyone.racers@gmail.com. You can also talk to us right down there in the doodly-doo if you're watching on YouTube. You can still text us. Does anybody ever text us, Mental?
Yes. Tyler, a lot.
Okay, 484-243-0455. Find us on Instagram or Twitter at everyone.racers. Thanks again, and until next week, keep the sparkly side up. Unless there is no sparkly side, then just keep those wheels down.